This week, a
Tell us what
gentleman
happened.
on Reddit discovered, claims to have discovered a SNES PlayStation prototype.
But this is a PlayStation podcast. Why are you talking about old Nintendo games?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So the idea is, for those who don't know,
Zoinks!
the
But I
origin.
thought the Sony system of consoles existed in a vacuum, separate from all other sorts of console gaming.
What is that voice? That sounds like a Powerpuff Girls anime.
No, it sounds like the animated guy in Community in the episode where they're like doing the space drama, trying to use the footage of Chang.
Yeah, that's a kind of a deeper cut than my reference. Instantly acceptable.
Marty got it. So basically, the origin of the PlayStation 1 was that it was going to be an add-on to the Super Nintendo, and then the company kind of parted ways.
Because Nintendo was historically impossible to work with back then, and that's actually the reason the PlayStation became what it did, was because cartridges were so expensive. They were upcharging, I think it was $40. They were charging third parties to buy blank cartridges that they would then sell for $60 to $85, which is why you saw such high prices on the N64. And you saw CDs on the PlayStation, which were so much easier and cheaper to manufacture at the time. So yeah, Sony, that's what I kind of, we talked about this at Beyond 400 a little bit. What I kind of love about them is the PlayStation 1 was built out of this kind of scorned relationship of them being like, you know, I'm going to be single and I'm going to go do crazy things. I'm going to go hook up with third parties at the bar and be sultry. And Nintendo was just like, no, you don't do that. And they went off in different directions. And the N64 started their sort of downward spiral of their systems selling worse and worse, which peaked with the Wii and then dipped again with the Wii U. And Sony just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So it's a really amazing story. But this is the bridge. This is the actual physical
If this
thing.
is real,
This
it's
is-
super exciting. Yeah, like no one knows it. It looks very real.
This
like
seems
the
legit.
dude,
Like this looks like there. We have old images from like an old issue of EGM.
Yeah.
There's like I think old patent records or something. Like people have, this isn't like some kind of like fantasy object that somebody's just kit bashed to make for Reddit karma.
and
or
he has
whatever.
a video that he showed where it's like it looks pretty legit.
So where did he claim he found it?
So that's the thing. His story is, my dad worked for a company. Apparently, one of the guys he used to work with, I think his name was Olaf, used to work at Nintendo. And
This
when
was-
my dad's company went bankrupt, my dad found it in a box of junk he was supposed to throw
So
out.
he doesn't know enough about his dad's old employers. He should really know more about this. But that's Olaf Olafsson, who used to be working for Sony Interactive Entertainment, which is what eventually turned into Sony Computer Entertainment.
Right.
Interesting.
And it basically, he was apparently like Olaf Olafsson was like a 35-year-old physicist who had published several novels and was, for whatever reason, working as a businessman with Sony.
Yeah.
And I guess this guy's dad was I think either in like either IT or was a janitor or whatever, and he just like
Stumbled
he
upon
was
this thing.
basically told at one point like, hey, we're throwing out a bunch of crap, go take care of it. And he goes into some room and there's just this crazy prototype sitting there, and he's just like, I'm gonna steal it.
And the interesting thing is, like, this guy,
which happens, right?
yeah, this guy can't find the power cable, he says, which is weird 'cause it looks like it's just a standard cable. And he also can't identify the cartridge that's in it. But we'll see. I mean, because it's a very convenient story. Because those specs are out there and this matches it so closely, people are like, well, it's not like impossible that you could 3D print approximations of it and make it like, it remains to be seen if this is legit.
It doesn't look, it doesn't look like sort of.
It looks
cheap,
really good
It
if it's
doesn't look
fake.
cheaply 3D printed.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Yeah.
Like I've seen 3D printed stuff that looks amazing, but it doesn't have that sort of layer cake look to it, or that kind of brushed sandstone.
And this
look
has
that
like the
most 3D
faded
printed stuff.
coloring, the yellowing that SNES gets.
Which is a really awesome tip-off, because anybody who owned a Super Nintendo or a PS1 knew that after 10 or 15 years,
Becomes like urine-soaked color.
and different intervals too.
Yeah,
like
totally.
the top half is yellow, but the bottom half is gray. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, but so I mean, we'll see. I would love if someone can authenticate this. Like, this would be an incredible find. Like, if this is legit, he'll probably sell this on eBay for like $20,000.
Oh yeah, or
yeah.
N64 will like try
Yeah.
to like kickstart being able to purchase this.
So
Yeah,
There's,
exactly.
there's a guy we've had on. I want you all to look up his work. There's a guy we've had on the show named Stephen P. Lynn that worked for Zynga. I think he still does, right? And he's a huge collector, and he's been collecting old school video game stuff for years. And he was the guy, like, when Nintendo had their World Championships at E3 just now, he was tweeting at the guy who won the trophy because he was kind of like, hey, I want that, you know?
Yeah,
He's like a really friendly or really nice Slugworth. And now I say that in the nicest way possible. Super awesome guy. But he's the kind of guy that I think would be perfect to hunt this down, because he would archive it. He would take
or like
care
Frank
of it.
Cifaldi or one of those
Yeah,
guys.
Totally.
Like, there's so
But
many like
the
incredible historians.
The reality is that like this game, whatever's in there, is probably not a finished game.
No.
And it's probably some weird prototype. I think our 10-year-old brains are like, oh, it's probably Mario versus Crash Bandicoot. But it's like nothing like that was ever.
I love it. Like that's exactly why I was like, what if it's something like that?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Mario
even
versus
if-
Crash
even just
Racing.
that image,
Even if it's
though,
just like like a weird different 3D Mario. Or
Oh
something.
yeah,
Like,
totally.
Even that image of the SNES controller or Super Famicom controller with PlayStation on it,
so
is
weird.
so
Yeah.
weird. It's
Well,
it's
because
cool to see.
it really, what's fascinating to me is that, like, if you went back in time to that exact point, and that you did everything you could to make amends between those companies, and you created that hybrid console together, and forever in video game history, those two forces joined. You would have a completely different video game universe right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Completely
crazy.
different. And it's like you wonder how big that monopoly would be, because Nintendo was originally sort of kicked aback by Sony, and then that kind of gave an entryway for Microsoft to step in. And it also, like, around the same time, that's when we saw the 3DO and the Philips CDI and all these,
Jaguar, yeah.
everyone and their mother made a console. And they all failed invariably, one by one. But the Nintendo N64 went on to sell a lot, and the PS1 went on to sell like 4 times more than that.
The CDI was Philips, right?
Yeah.
That was the one that Nintendo partnered with. Kind of.
That they did partner with, yeah.
Yeah, they were basically double dipping. That was their like.
The result of
They
that
were like, well,
partnership.
we don't need you, Sony. We've got a date to this party. Well, excuse me, princess.
Yeah,
Such
literally.
hits as Hotel Mario and what the is wrong with Link's face?
Yeah, the result of
favorite
that
Zelda
partnership were 3 of the worst first party branded Nintendo games ever made. Obviously, like we had, Wand of Gamelon starting. It was just like this bad Legend of Zelda. But I mean, we almost got like a PlayStation Legend of Zelda. But like maybe it would have been Wand of Gamelon. Like,
Every time you say that, I'm just hearing Wanda Gamelon.
You're just picturing Wanda Sykes.
This is
in
my
like a
date.
wizard
It's
cap.
Wanda Gamelon.